When you play an FCS opponent,
Miss,
you
can
never
I
really
interrupt you for 1
know.
second?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I just want to let you know, I just started recording. So just to let everybody know that we are recording. I'm sorry, Melissa, go ahead.
No, absolutely. Yeah, so it's hard to say. We have a new play caller. We're returning quarterback Max Duggan, who's a junior this fall. It is the first time he's had a full off season. So Max came in as a true freshman. It was an early enrollee. Split time at starter with Alex Delton, formerly of Kansas State, so who I'm sure you guys were all rooting for very hard last weekend against Stanford. So my brother-in-law works at Stanford, so you can't talk too much smack on them while I'm here. But so Max went through a full off season. He dealt with a heart issue last fall, and with COVID obviously was not the same experience, but we expect big things out of our junior quarterback this year. TCU's run game is potentially very elite if the offensive line holds up, which is still a question mark. We're not really sure what to expect out of this group. The talent is there. They have not performed very well over the last couple of years. So we're hoping to see a more stable group. TCU used 7 different starting offensive lineups last fall in 10 games. So if we can get the same guys on the field, we feel pretty good about our running game as well. And then defensively, you're going to see a lot of parallels to what Cal does well. These are 2 really good defensive teams. In the post-game press conference last week, Gary Patterson could not say enough about what a great unit that is for the Cal Bears. He said it had these 2 teams played last year as scheduled, that it probably would have been the best defense he saw all season. So coming from a guy like Gary Patterson, who is known as one of the better defensive minds in college football, I always take that pretty seriously. So I'm thinking that it's going to be interesting to see what our experienced quarterback does against a great defense. And if our running backs, who are all pretty young, can find a way to break free and pick up some big yards on the ground.
Having a little trouble unmuting there. So Melissa, what do you see as the real key matchups for this game?
To me, the biggest things that we're going to see is again, that offensive line of TCU against that defensive line of Cal. And that's a really strong unit for the Bears and what I've seen and what I've heard. And so can we create space? Can we win that battle in the trenches from the TCU standpoint? And defensively, if there is a weakness on this defense, it is cornerback depth. Our starting cornerback, Travius Hodges Tomlinson, who is the nephew of TCU great and Chargers great LaDainian Tomlinson, is an exceptional player. He is outstanding, a preseason All-American, graded out by Pro Football Focus as one of the top corner covers in the country last year. But opposite him, there are some question marks. Noah Daniels should be our starter. He's had some undisclosed issues. He's still a part of the program. He was on the sideline last weekend, so we don't think it's anything serious. He's just not playing yet. Gary Patterson has kept him benched for a reason that he has yet to disclose to us. But CJ Caesar, who is currently the starting cornerback opposite Tomlinson, gave up 2 really long plays. He got beat badly on double moves both times. If Chase Garbers can connect on the deep ball, then there's definitely room for big plays. Additionally, if you can get to that second level of the defense from the running game, which I know is a strength for the Bears, you can pick up some yardage in chunks that way too. So I want to see if that offensive line protects Max Duggan and if it opens up holes for the running game. And then I want to see if that TCU secondary can kind of cover for that weak spot on the corner on one side of the field and have their safeties and make some plays. I think the defensive line of TCU could have a really good night. I think there's an advantage there for the Frogs, but I think defensively you could see the exact same thing from the Bears and that they could definitely cause some trouble for what the TCU offense wants to do.
So what do you see as like the absolute top strength for TCU?
That's a great question. I am always going to go with, if you're going to tell me the best thing that TCU does, it's always going to be on the defensive ball, as long as Gary Patterson's the head football coach. That is his bread and butter. His specialty is as good as anybody in the country. And this is the on paper Tigers most talented team defensively I've ever seen. Gary's used to grabbing 2-star running backs and turning them into NFL defensive ends. Now he's recruiting 4-star defensive ends and letting them play defensive ends. So if this team can live up to its billing on that regard, they have a chance to be really, really special. One of the more fun defenses I've watched. If you wanted me to pick one particular unit, I'm going to go with the defensive line. the deepest unit on the team. It's the most talented unit on the team. Kari Coleman, who's a true sophomore defensive end, who was a breakout player last fall, is probably not going to play this weekend. He's still dealing with an injury, but you still have Dylan Horton and O'Shawn Mathis, who's an All-American type talent. At the ends, you've got a couple other guys that can certainly come in and make some noise in a pinch. And then the interior line with Jacques Sorrells and Coral Bethley and Earl Barquette, and we're getting Terrell Cooper back, and Kenny Turnier, who's a transfer from UCF. There are really 6 guys that I feel comfortable on the field at any given time. And if it's going to be 120 degrees on that grass on Saturday afternoon, like I expect it will be, that depth could play a huge role in the ultimate overall success of that side of the ball.
Did you just say 120 degrees?
So it's supposed to be over 100, and I'd take photos on the sidelines again. So I'm not going to be there Saturday, but I flew in last weekend. I can tell you down on that field, when it's that hot and all that moisture sitting in the air, it feels about 115, 120, especially for a 2:30 kickoff. It's not going to be pleasant. There's a reason I chose not to fly in for this one.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. And what's the humidity supposed to be? Do you know?
I haven't checked it the last couple of days. And the one thing I'll tell you, having spent, about 18 years total in Texas, if you don't like the Texas weather, wait 5 minutes because it will change. So I usually don't get too worried about it up until kickoff. I would say I was there last weekend for the opener. It was a night game. It was probably 80-something% humidity. It rained, and I know we'll all be jealous here in California, right? It rained 4 times while I was walking over to the stadium and before kickoff. So if it's one of those kind of days, it just cooks you down on that field. It's absolutely miserable, and the Duquesne players just clearly were not ready for it. I think Cal won't face that much of a difference. It's been pretty warm, even I think by Bay Area standards the last couple of weeks, but it'll get to you. It definitely wears you out.
Yeah. So we've got a question from Joe in chat. Does TCU's coaching staff have an unfavorable impression of the Cal offense based on last Saturday's opening game performance in Berkeley?
No,
Melissa,
I don't.
Melissa, just to be honest, just in full disclosure, I was a very disappointed Cal Bears fan, as you can imagine, to see them put up 17 points on opening day.
Well, it's really funny because we were sitting in the press conference, and the first thing that Gary said was, he was worried about the Duquesne quarterback. They said that he got knocked out really early. The second thing he said is, has the Cal game started? What's the score? And so when he told him the score, it was 14-0 at that point. He goes, see, this is a really good team. We got our work cut out for us. I don't know what he thought at the end of the game, but I can tell you this much. Gary, going back to the Cheez-It Bowl too, what a masterpiece that was. Like, we can talk about the Cheez-It Bowl all night. It's my favorite game I've ever watched in person. But Gary has so much respect for Justin Wilcox. He has so much respect for Cal football. I think he's going to have a lot of respect for that offensive system. I mean, you got a pro guy running that offense now, right? And he's the first one to tell you that you never read too much off of one game. And so I don't think that he's going to go into this preparing his defense any less. I can promise you he's doing the exact opposite. He's saying that was an anomaly. That's not who this team is going to be. Putting in a new system, they're going to get better week by week. So there will be a high level of respect. The only person that Gary Patterson has ever been openly disrespectful about and to is that guy that used to coach down at Baylor, whose name I don't like to say. So other than that, he tends to have a lot of faith and trust in what other people are doing. He's been the president of the AFCA. He's a guy that knows how hard this job is and tends to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. So I think he'll have a lot of respect for Wilcox and Co. coming in Saturday afternoon.
That's great to hear, Melissa. Thank you. I have a lot of respect for Coach Patterson, and to hear that he's going to take this seriously makes me feel a little more hopeful.
Yeah, he's like I said, he said the Cal defense is outstanding. And so he's been dissecting that offense and looking for every single little thing he knows they can do right. And he'll have his guys prepared. Like, that team scored 40 points in opening week. I can promise you that.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Melissa? You can go ahead and put them in chat or you raise hand or something like that, and you can ask.
Put me on the hot seat, y'all. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't make it too easy, Honor.
How about feelings about the Big 12's current situation and the 4 teams they've invited. And
Oh, Dwayne, you're going to get me talking about realignment already, huh? As a California native and as someone who lives on the West Coast now, I will say I was terribly disappointed that the Pac-12 decided they didn't want us. That would have been an absolute dream scenario for me. Plus, TCU's had so many Pac-12 teams on the schedule for the last several years. We've got several more coming up. So I was crossing my fingers and hoping and praying that we would get that invite. So I was super disappointed. That being said, I don't, want to use any improper language here. So I'm just going to say that Texas can kick rocks. We never liked dealing with the Longhorn fans. I'm sure it's if you think of everything you dislike about USC and then multiply it by 100, and give them even more money somehow. And that's what dealing with Texas fans is. The only difference is that USC has actually won something of value in the last decade, and Texas hasn't been relevant since they beat the Trojans in the Rose Bowl when it comes to football, at least. So I am not unhappy to be out of their shadow, but certainly a less than ideal situation. And having been at TCU, watched us go from the WAC to Conference USA to the Mountain West, and then finally get that invite to the Power Five, only to have it potentially ripped out from under us just a decade later, was super, super disheartening. We were 1-10 my freshman year at TCU. We tore down the goalpost for beating SMU, which is the equivalent of tearing down the goalpost for beating Nevada, right? Like, it's just not, that's how bad things were. And so I have been, first super depressed initially, but I've gone from that to cautiously optimistic. I like the 4 programs that we're adding. I probably would have rather seen Memphis over Houston as that 4th team, but I think that Cincinnati is an outstanding program. They have great basketball and great football, great coach, and I think that'll help them keep their coach too. The market that UCF brings with the 71,000 undergrads and a good market in Orlando is awesome. And look, BYU has its own set of issues that I don't want to deal with. But from a pure standpoint of football, they do bring a lot to the table. So I think we'll see our grant of rights deal go down. But the rumor is that they're still going to be in the mid $20 million range, which would keep the non-revenue sports afloat. And really just that's my concern. TCU football is never going to have a problem. But, keeping our baseball program at an elite level, keeping our women's athletics programs at elite levels, that's where I thought that this could be really damaging to the overall brand. But hopefully this will be enough, adding those 4 schools to keep TCU as a Power 5 conference, to keep them as an autonomy conference, and to keep them in the playoff discussion for the Big 12 going forward.
Well, you're not alone in hating Texas. I mean, ever since what happened with the Rose Bowl, I've hated Texas. And now I have to say I hate North Carolina, since that's where MB is, Mr.
Yeah, we don't say that name. We don't say the AB name either. So it's all those guys with those B last names. We just avoid them, right?
Yes.
Okay, anybody else have questions for Melissa? Well, in case somebody puts one in chat while we're waiting, I have one more question for you. Well, actually, a couple more questions, but the first one is talk a little bit about special teams.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. That has been such a roll of the dice for the last couple of years. We've got a good kicker as long as he's inside of 40 yards, and Griffin Kell. He's played a lot of football for TCU, but I don't think that Gary Patterson trusts him very much. One of the most encouraging things I saw last weekend was the fact that we had a 4th and 5, I think, right around the 42-yard line, and there's no way, or maybe 35-yard line. There's no way Gary's attempting a 50-plus yard kick in that situation this year. That would have been a punt in years past. And so the fact that he was willing to go for it on 4th and medium on our side of the field was a good sign for me. It doesn't mean that he trusts his kicker, but at least he means he's willing to go for it and not punt. He trusts his offense a little bit more. But Griffin's really accurate inside of 40 yards. And I think he can make a big kick if asked. We have a punter who's he's great at placing the ball inside the 10-yard line. He doesn't have a huge leg, but he can really down punts in bad situations. He only had one on Saturday night, but he put it like inside the 10. He looked really, really good. He's also an Aussie punter who's like 30, and you have to love a 30-year-old Australian punter in college football. It is a rule. It is steadfast, right? We always have to root for those guys. So Jordy's great. We're a big fan. What I'm really excited about this year is the return game. Darius Davis and JD Spielman are both seniors. Spielman is a transfer who came in from Nebraska, who left as nearly holding every single record for receptions in Nebraska history, which doesn't mean that much because it's a Big Ten school and we know that they don't do anything offensively anyways. But JD's a great kid, an amazing human being, just so thoughtful and so supportive. We got to talk to him at the press conference for the first time in his TCU career, and I came away just so impressed with him as a human being and as a football player. Darius and JD are both human joysticks. You know, I think my co-managing editor on our site said that on one of the Darius Davis's punt return, it looked like a toddler had gotten the control and hit the spin button 15 times in a row because he was just making guys miss and doing crazy things. But both are a threat to house it anytime, especially in the punt game, and they can pick up big chunk of yards in the kicking game as well. So I would say that Cal will do well to not let them get the opportunity to return anything, kick it through the end zone, punt it out of bounds if at all possible, because they both have shown the capability to make other teams pay.
Okay, well, so I know you're on time crunch here. We've got a couple of quick questions, and then we'll wrap up here. Richard would like to know, how do you expect TCU to do against Cal's former coach at SMU? And Joe also has a question: does TCU usually have a significant home field advantage, and does the point spread surprise you?
Those are both great questions. Sonny Dykes was an offensive analyst after he left, or before several years after he left Cal, I think, and spent a year at TCU before going to SMU. I will say, and again, this is nothing personal to Cal whatsoever. I said that there's a lot of respect for your program, especially defensively. But SMU is the scariest offense we're going to see, and probably until we face Oklahoma. What they can do, what Sonny has done with that program, he has completely turned around a organization that it was still 40 years later suffering from the death penalty as far as what they were able to do on the football field. SMU, and it's a rivalry game, and they won last time, and so that game terrifies me. And if TC doesn't have Noah Daniels back, I think like that to me is I think if we go 4-1 in our first game or 3-1 in our first 4 games, that's probably the loss. And so I'm definitely concerned about the Ponies. I can't stand them. Like, nobody likes Dallas if you grew up in Fort Worth or spent time there anyways. Sonny Dykes is a great guy and a great coach. I have a ton of respect for him, but man, I hope we smoke them on September 25th. I can't stand that program. So I even had some former students at my previous school that went and played for SMU. And I saw one of them before the game 2 years ago. And I just looked at him and I was like, I will talk to you later. Right now, nothing. And he laughed, and then they beat us, and then he laughed some more. Yeah, I think he's done a heck of a job. It was a perfect fit for him. Absolutely perfect fit for him. I know they're disappointed that they didn't get the Big 12 invite, but I am not. I don't want to play them any more than I have to. And then as far as the home field advantage, you know, like probably a lot of schools that universities I've seen around here too, is that if you aren't winning, people aren't showing up. And a 2:30 game when it's 100 plus in middle of September is going to be a tough sell. So I think that I was hoping we would get ranked this week just to put a little bit more interest. I think we'll have not necessarily a sellout, but still a pretty good crowd. I was super impressed with the student section. On Saturday night, I thought they really brought it, but the upper deck was pretty empty for Duquesne. Not really surprising. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better of a crowd. When TCU is playing well, when a big play happens, you will definitely hear that crowd, because, you know, a bunch of drunken college kids and Texas folks, they're going to make some noise for sure. But I don't know that people put Amon G. Carter on their list of most intimidating places to play. And who could, I haven't looked at the spread recently. What's the spread right now?
Joe, what is the spread? Do you remember?
I thought it was about 10 or 10.5 points to Cal, which makes them I think the odds makers were not impressed last week, but many of us would probably agree. But probably putting too much into the first game.
Yeah, I think there probably is some of that. I think, you know, it's really going to depend which team makes the most mistakes. And I think if TCU plays turnover-free football, then I think 10.5 could be pretty accurate. If Cal shows up and you can get Chase Garbers rolling a little bit, there's going to be opportunities for big plays. So I expect this thing to be really, really close at the half. I think in theory, just, and again, I'm a total homer. I'm not going to act like I'm not. But I think TCU should pull away late. And I think that the heat could play a factor. The depth could play a factor. I really like TCU's depth on defense. So I think that they can make some turnovers. But if Garbers can let a couple loose early and get TCU's defense on the heels, especially the secondary, I would not be shocked at all if this is kind of like a 17-13 game going into the fourth quarter and a total slugfest down the stretch.
Melissa, for whatever it's worth, I think I'm correct in saying this. Coach Wilcox has not, since he's been head coach at Cal, lost a non-conference game on the road.
Oh, yeah, I think that's right.
Including wins at Ole Miss and at the University of North Carolina, and possibly at BYU as well, I think. So,
because he was 9-0.
History's on his side.
Yeah, he was 9-0, I think, coming into the Nevada game.
Right.
So I think I remember reading that too. So yeah, I mean, the environment is not going to, put Cal on their heels by any stretch. The Heat might. But I mean, again, this is a really good coach. He's played in big games. He's coached in big games. He's been a part of big, important games throughout his career, not just at Cal. And so they're not going to be intimidated. They're going to be prepared. It's early in the season. It's week 2. We just beat the snot out of an FCS team. I am so high on this TCU team right now. I'm going to have my heart broken. It goes without saying. This happens every year, right? So I'm just desperately trying to make it to get a win over Texas. And as long as that happens, the season's been a success.
Melissa, I'm gonna close out with our traditional question that we ask all of our opposing writers that come in, and you have to answer it. There's no way out of it. What is, and it's a perfect segue for this, what is your final score prediction?
See, you guys are putting me on the spot here because I'm with a bunch of
That's the plan.
People. Yeah. And so I don't really want to tell you what my prediction has been because it's a little like, again, I'm really, really high on TCU right now. I will be really happy if TCU crosses the 30-point mark. I don't think that's a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination against this defense. So I'm going to say Cal 17, because I do think they're going to get some big plays. They're going to put some points on the board. TCU 31. And again, total homer, absolutely. But I think Max Duggan is gonna have a big night, a big afternoon. And I think if he has a big afternoon, then TCU can get this done. Like I said, we all saw the Cheez-It Bowl and we could never erase that from our memories. And so you cannot tell me that Cal and TCU are going to meet and play just a regular football game. Something weird's going to happen. I just hope the weird thing that happens benefits the home team because I love TCU. But I also think that we could see something. We could see some crazy stuff, and I can't wait to see how this one plays out.
All right, Melissa, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have another game to cover here, so we really appreciate you stopping by, giving us your thoughts. It's been a pleasure, and of course, I know you have to run up, but you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. We always make the invitation, but appreciate you coming by.
I'm going to go watch my students play some volleyball against Davis High School and support the kids. But you know what? I might try to come and catch a game watching party when you guys are able to hold those again, when it's safe to do so. I would love to come and do that. Maybe when you play Stanford, not at Stanford, if I can, I won't tell my brother-in-law which side I'm rooting for though. He won't like that. So it was really a pleasure, y'all. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. I wish you luck for the next 10 games after Saturday, but got to root for my Horned Frogs Saturday afternoon.
All right.
Melissa, go Bears.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to notes. I don't know what's. Oh, Al, your screen sharing.
Oh, let me get out of there.
I fixed it. Never mind. Anyway, so that was a great recap for TCU. Glad she was able to join us today. So I would like to now introduce a number of you will probably remember from the last few years our development rep from at the athletic department was Will Cooper. Well, Will is no longer with the athletic department, and he has been replaced by Adam Brooks. And so I'd like to go ahead and introduce Adam and let him give you some thoughts on what's going on in the athletic department.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Appreciate the introduction. Name is Adam Brooks. Started here at Cal Athletics in April of 2020. So I've only been in the office now for about a month and a half since they let us back on campus. Prior to Cal, I spent about 10 years at Fresno State in their athletics department. The last 3 or 4 of them with Coach Tedford. And when this opportunity came up, Coach was pretty much told me I had to go. Cal's a special place. As I'm sure many of you saw, he was back on campus before the season started. I came and spoke to our team. Him and Justin are really good friends. And so it was good to see Coach back on campus and around the football program again. This isn't for too much of public knowledge yet, but I think you'll see us honor Coach Tedford for everything he did and most winningest head coach at a home game this season. I think we're playing on Oregon State right now, so be on the lookout for that. We'll share the news once we make it official. To the Nevada game, Melissa touched on it a little bit, and speaking with Coach Wilcox, we're all very frustrated. I work directly with football, and being around the halls, our coaches are pissed off. Our student athletes are upset with their performance. I think Nevada's a really good team. They're picked to win their conference. Their quarterback is potentially a first round draft pick next year in the NFL. They have really big wide receivers. Their tight end is huge. But still no excuses for why we couldn't win that game, especially being up 14-0 in the first quarter. I think the big thing for us looking to TCU, we had 3 3rd and 3s on Saturday that we did not convert. 3rd and 3 is a pretty high percentage third down that we should be able to convert. Chase has to make some throws. Our offensive line needs to be able to protect Chase. I feel like most of us probably saw Chase was pretty uncomfortable in the pocket on Saturday. Nevada's defensive line is good, but TCU's is better. And so we have to be better on the offensive line come Saturday. Nevada also had some very explosive plays. They had 3 completed passes over 40 yards. That is something that cannot happen on Saturday. I know Melissa talked about TCU's offense, but that is something we're focused on. TCU runs a spread offense with an RPO, which is a run pass option. So you'll see a lot of that on Saturday. They're very well coached and very athletic. So it'll be a great test for our defense coming up Saturday. Going back to the Nevada game really quick, I think a big turning point in the first half, special teams, unfortunately. I know a lot of us probably have some memories of last year, but our punt game was not strong again. They had a great return, which set Nevada up to score 3 points at the end of the first half, and then they got the ball back and drove down on us and scored again, which is about a 9 to 10 point swing on us in 2 drives, which also can't happen. Chris Brooks, or formerly Brown, is questionable on Saturday to play against TCU. He's made some good strides this week, but he did not finish the game against Nevada. He's questionable to play on Saturday. And then also Trey Pastor, who's an inside linebacker, is doubtful. Those are the 2. Trey got injured in practice this week. He'll be fine for the season, but for Saturday, he'll most likely be out. I don't know if many of you know this, but TCU is the 2nd most successful program in the Big 12 this decade, only behind Oklahoma. So we're going into a hostile environment on Saturday. They run a lot of man-to-man D, as Melissa talked about. LaDainian Tomlinson's, I think she said nephew or son, is a standout corner. So they're going to pretty much put him on an island. They think he can cover our receivers one-on-one. They're going to stack the box, put potentially 9 guys in the box to stop the run. They know that's our one of our strengths, and so they're going to make Chase throw the ball, and hopefully we can have Chase perform a little bit better on Saturday. We need to hit those explosive plays over the top if it's one-on-one, and get us into scoring position. So that's kind of, Justin's outlook from last Saturday to this Saturday. We're disappointed and frustrated with the outcome, but a lot of season left. And so we're looking forward to the competition on Saturday. It's going to be a tough game for us. The athletic department, we're hyper focused on name, image, and likeness. That was if you guys all saw that was a law instituted in July 1st. And so every department across the country now is allowing all student athletes to make money off of their brand and generate revenue. So for example, Chase Garbers is selling his jersey and taking profits through our stores on campus, and now he can make money off that, which he hasn't in the past. We created a golden program, which is really exciting. It's a partnership with the Haas School of Business, our law school, the athletic department, and it's really to help our student athletes with the education and financial literacy of NIL. Obviously, there's tax implications, and we want to set them up for success. So all of our student athletes who are interested in it, it's a free program to our student athletes, taught by our compliance office, the Haas School, and the law school. We also partnered with a company called Influencer, which a lot of companies a lot of athletic departments across the country are partnering with to provide a platform for our student athletes to learn about how creating a brand helps them with businesses and helps them get their name out there. This NIL is a huge recruiting pitch for us, especially where we are, Bay Area, Silicon Valley, Sacramento. Some of the smartest people in the world are right here on our campus and our alumni of this university. And so it goes to great lengths that our athletic department and our student athletes can benefit from this. And then the other news you probably saw right before season, we signed a naming rights deal for our field at California Memorial Stadium. It's FTX Field. That is the first field naming rights deal in history that will be paid in cryptocurrency. So really excited. We're really excited to be partners with FTX and to be really at the forefront.
Makes us look ridiculous.
So that's it for me. Just a couple updates. Happy to be here. I'll be joining all of these. Happy to take any questions anyone has about Nevada, TCU. I'm pretty sure Melissa already covered TCU a lot better than I can, but happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Does the coaching staff now regret not giving a scholarship offer to Carson Strong? I had read that he was being considered, then he got hurt his senior year, and Cal pulled back.
Yeah,
he's from Vacaville.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Carson kind of went under the radar a little bit. His injury set him back. This was a familiar situation that a lot of schools are in. If you guys know the starting quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, he had one offer coming out of junior college, and it was in Firebaugh, and Fresno did not offer him. And he went to Wyoming, and now he's one of the best starting quarterbacks in the league. This happens. I think injuries in high school are unfortunate, obviously, for the student athlete, and it's something that each university needs to look at. And they make the decision to go elsewhere sometimes, and that was the case with Carson. He's an incredible talent. Obviously, he'll be selected in next year's draft, potentially in the first round. But he's definitely Power 5 skill level, and I think he would have succeeded here if he was to come to Cal.
All right, Adam, thank you for the update. We look forward to having you at the meetings.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you for inviting me, Gary. Really appreciate it.
Oh, pleasure. We I know something came up last week that you couldn't join us, but hope you're able to make the rest of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys.
All right, great. Okay, so we're running a little bit behind schedule, but we don't have any time that we have to be done, so we've got plenty of time here. So I'd like to go on to our main event. Adrian Johnson is with us today, and she is with the Career Center. She's the Assistant Director for Employer and Alumni Engagement. And I got a chance to hear Adrian, I believe it was one of the CAA board meetings a couple of years ago, and I was just so impressed with the Career Center that, and I think it's something we all need to know about. There are so many things, like from when I was at Cal, that just didn't really exist, for the students and for everybody there. So it's great to learn about it. And the other thing is that in a meeting that I was at, can't remember, just fairly recently, and it was with a lot of alumni, and I think it was actually with transfer students coming in, and a lot of alumni were there. And we all encouraged the students to make sure they reach out to alumni. And because there's just no such thing basically as a Cal alumni that doesn't like talking to students and doesn't like being asked for help and question and guidance and all of that. And the Career Center is kind of right up that alley. So I'm not going to talk anymore about it. I'm going to let Adrian tell you all about it. So I'd like to introduce Adrian Johnson.
Thanks, Gary. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's really nice to connect. And it's a hot day here in Berkeley. I'm sure it's even hotter if you're in Sacramento. So it's great to see everybody here and participating and excited. So I'm going to share my screen. But first I wanted to ask, is there anybody who's already worked with the Career Center before? And do you want to kind of tell me what you've done or give an example of the work you've done with the Career Center?
Go ahead and put it in chat or just unmute and speak up.
Well, I could definitely start, Adrian. I was about to write you just a private thank you message. It's been, oh my gosh, it's been something like almost 40 years now, but the Career Center for me as a Cal undergraduate was a lifesaver. I don't know why I sought out the Career Center. This is Joe.
Yeah.
But, for some reason I did as a senior, and I can't tell you much of the detail at this point, but it helped me immensely to focus on my experience and my skills and my aspirations. And it really helped me formulate a direction for graduate school and a career. And since that time, as I've served as a Cal and Sacramento supervisor and mentor for many Cal students, I've strongly encouraged them to connect with the Career Center, simply because I benefited from that contact way back in 1979, 1980.
Great. Thanks, Joe. That's super great to hear. And I'm sure our director, who just recently retired after 25 years, would have loved to hear that, because he started around that time as a wee young thing and is now just recently retired. And we're going through a lot of changes, and the world of work, as you guys have seen, living on Zoom has gone through a lot of changes recently as well. If your friends and family are all living on Zoom half the time, students are also doing that. They're trying to go to class on Zoom a lot of the time too. So it's hard, and career development has changed a lot as well. Anybody else want to chime in? I can always get alumni to talk. So it's getting the students to talk that's hard. Okay, well, I'll go ahead. I mean, I know it's getting close to everybody's dinner time and all of that. So I just wanted to quickly share some opportunities for you guys to connect with the Career Center and to connect with students. They are really excited to meet alumni, but they also often feel really shy, or they don't know what to say, or they're not really sure how to present themselves. I think a lot of us forget what it's like to be 18 or 21 and really just not feel sure of what we're saying or what we're doing. And, we have a lot of students that come for our Career Connection series, which I'll talk about shortly, who really benefit from hearing from alumni who didn't know what they wanted to do when they graduated. And I sort of had the opposite story. Sorry, I'll go back a second since I'm still on soliloquy. I'll go back. The reason I got into career development is because I didn't take advantage of any career development, and I was very unmoored as a fresh grad, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I think I was interested in everything and nothing, and it was just really difficult without any guidance. And I think alumni can step in where students don't want to talk to staff. They've heard we're like the teacher. Nobody wants to hear that, right? They want to hear from alumni, from people who have been in their position. So that's where you guys can really chip in and give back and really share your story and allow students to really learn from that and develop, and ask questions they can't ask at an interview, which is really big because, we have career fairs, we have all these other events, but they're too shy to ask recruiters like, oh, like, what do you think of my resume? Or what do you think of this? Do you think I should write like a cover letter for every position? But with alumni, they can kind of relax and be themselves and say, hey, like I've only written a cover letter for this. What do you recommend? So that's why I'm here. So first I wanted to quickly talk about our services for alumni. We do have the Berkeley Career Network, which is a partnership with the Cal Alumni Association. I'm pretty sure some of you are on there. If not, I'm gonna send Gary this slide deck with links in it, so you can definitely click through there. I'll also share a link in the chat afterwards. But this is basically a Facebook or LinkedIn for just Cal grads. So it's essentially where you get on there, students can contact you, they can reach out to you based on your profile and what industry you've worked in, or what position or what interests you have, and then really just ask you questions. The other thing we offer for any young alumni here is Handshake Career Platform Access up to 5 years post-graduation. And we do offer counseling appointments up to 1 year post-graduation. So if you know somebody who just graduated or you just graduated and you really need to talk to a counselor, then we've got you. Obviously, there's a lot of resources available on our website as well. And if you're past 5 years out and you're going through like a career transition, or you're really trying to, start your own business or something like that, you can request to be added to Handshake, which is our platform for career development. Essentially, Handshake, we have like 50,000 employers on there, tons of alumni, everyone trying to recruit from Cal and Cal alumni. Berkeley Career Network is a great place also to post jobs, which I'll talk about shortly. Okay. Oh, wait. Do not click the link. Next slide. Okay. So next thing I wanted to talk about is some opportunities to volunteer and mentor. So we do have a good amount of affinity and identity programming, including somebody mentioned earlier, the Transfer Summit. We just did an event with the Cal Alumni Association around Golden Bear orientation, which was a transfer student focused student alumni networking. So if some of you were there, thank you. I didn't directly coordinate that, but I did participate on a Sunday, which I know is a hard day for a lot of people to join. So thanks for joining if you did that. We also have a first generation series for those of you who were first generation in your family to go to college. We segment out those students now and provide specialized services for them since they don't have family to advise them who have been to college before. We also have a bunch of counselor programming, our counseling team. So I work on the employer relations team, but our counseling team also has smaller format events that are like alumni chats or workshops or panels. And then my main role is the Career Connections alumni student networking by industry. So the next one is non-technical roles in tech companies. So for example, like marketing, HR, sales. If you're in any of those roles for a tech company, not a programmer or whatever, there's a lot of students who want to work in tech, but they don't really know how. They're not a programmer. They don't want to go back and suddenly major in computer science because they're seniors, but they do think they want to work with tech. So that's an example of one event that we're having. I know a lot of you are into sports. So if any of you are coaches or you have worked in the sports industry in any capacity, in business side or what have you, we do have a sports event that happens every March, early March. So that is a Career Connection sports industry. Last year, we had so many people and it was going to be so great. And tons of people from Golden State Warriors and all sorts of teams, as well as a lot of Cal staff who work with the teams, and we ended up canceling it because of COVID. But I'm really hoping that in this year, it'll be a really fun one. And the other thing I wanted to mention that I know a lot of you might have taken part in or have hosted is the Cal Externship Job Shadowing Program. We're trying to relaunch it on the Berkeley Career Network. And I'll send this link in the chat as well after I finish here. And it's basically a job shadow program. We're doing it, probably most people will do it remotely, but we're allowing you to choose remote or in person. And the student would have to agree to that. And they would also choose remote or in person. That's going to be hosted on Berkeley Career Network, again, hosted by the Cal Alumni Association. So if you're interested in having an extern job shadow you, definitely click on that. It's easy to join up the program. It's as easy as creating a Facebook account. You just put some information about the industry you work in, etc. Okay, and if you're looking to hire Cal students, we can also help you. Again, the services for alumni, the networking events, and then hiring at Cal are the three things that we work with. The Handshake job postings. Handshake, again, is our platform where we have job postings and career fairs, virtual career fairs this year. So you can get on the Handshake and reach alumni and current students. If you're looking for alumni that are further out and you're trying to hire kind of older alumni, the Berkeley Career Network is a better place. And we also have our student org partnership program. So we do a lot of programming with our student organizations. So if you were in any student organizations and you want to tap into that and really, you know, connect with, like, there's like the Minorities in Health Coalition, or the, what is another really common one? Phi Beta Lambda, or undergraduate Haas Business Association. A lot of people were in those clubs when they were in school, and those clubs are still looking for alumni partners to come back and speak to them, talk with them, connect with them, give them advice, or participate on panels and so on. Our call for volunteers process. So at the Career Center, we're pretty under-resourced. We're in a hiring freeze for the last 2 years. It's been rough. We run a call for volunteers process in August and January, where we send out via Handshake, our platform, you know, a link, which I'll share later, where you can volunteer for these Career Connections events or for other alumni chats. So usually if you don't see something right away that you want to join, the next semester there will be an option. So we're getting into September, so there's still a lot of events in October and November, but then your next opportunity will go out in January for events in January, February, March, etc. So I'm going to stop there and just take any questions. Anybody have questions, or you want to chime in and talk about an event that you've attended, anything like that?
You can go ahead and put it in chat, or just go ahead and unmute and speak up. While people are thinking of questions or typing in there, Adrian, I'll tell you, I was one of the people at the transfer student event on the Sunday a few weeks ago, and I would encourage everybody to, you know, get in on those. It was, you know, for a couple of things. Number one, it was a lot of fun. You know, interacting with the students was great, and they really had incredible questions. They really appreciated the connections with the alumni, but it was also really just interesting because there was a lot younger alumni that were there, that, you know, that were able to give information that was a lot better than anything I could give about being on campus. Because they were there much more recent, but I also just learned a lot about how things are working on campus now, and what's going on, and what the student life is like. So I would really encourage people to get involved with those. Okay, Richard had a question in chat, Adrian.
Okay. Okay. How has COVID impacted recruiting? Okay, good question. So 2020 was rough, but I can report that we are back at 2019 levels as of this fall in terms of job postings. There are a lot of people who have started jobs remotely, and that's obviously less than ideal, but I think the business community has really pivoted quickly and responded to this virtual life. And we are hosting our virtual career fairs, and that includes like 10-minute chats with recruiters. So in some senses, the students like it more because they don't have to wait in line. They already have a 10-minute time slot. They show up for that time slot in Handshake in our system, and they do a video interview with the recruiter, and then they hear back usually within a few days. So it's more efficient in some ways. So I think it's one of those things, the growing pains were difficult, but the digital transition has been overall, I think, positive for the student experience. They've really been lucky to, the fact is it's harder on the recruiter than it is on the student. The students are digital native. They live with their phones in their face. So for them, being on camera or interviewing on camera is not a big deal. It's harder for the recruiters actually to get used to that. As Patty was saying at the beginning of this, it's a lot harder for those of us who've been working for some time to live our lives on Zoom when we're used to in-person. So I think my bigger concern
is the career, where is the career center? I kind of remember it being in the temporary buildings, which I think are finally no longer there.
Yeah, so it's on Bancroft across from the student union.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so right on Bancroft, and that little alley that goes to the Durant Channing garage.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's right before you get to that alley. Yeah, any other questions or comments?
So did anybody besides Joe take advantage of the Career Center while they were there? I'm kind of asking the group.
I took advantage of the Grid Club when I moved to Sacramento, and that's how I met all the bears in Sacramento. And then once you knew them, they hired you. I mean, that's just how it worked. Everybody had been lost in Dwinell. Everybody had been in Wheeler before the fire. We networked here kind of without the Career Center, but you see somebody in a Cal t-shirt, you say go Bears, and they're your best new friend.
Yeah, thanks, Patty. Yeah, I think that hearing that is something students really need to hear, because obviously when you're on campus, there's all these feelings of like connectedness, but I think a lot of them are fearful that like when they graduate, they're kind of stepping out into the world by themselves. And they don't realize that there's all these other alumni that are there that are willing to help them. They don't know until they see you and they talk to you. And so that's why, we really push attendance to these events from alumni, even if just you show up and kind of say like, yeah, it's going to be fine. Like I didn't get the perfect job the first time around, but then after a couple of years, I got the perfect job and it's been fine. Just telling them like, look, if you don't land your #1 job right after graduation, you'll still be okay. Because a lot of them are very hard on themselves. And I think, as you know, when you went to school, it can be highly competitive, and a lot of people don't know how to quite compete in the market, right? So I think our Career Connection series is really just a way for students to hear from alumni that it's going to be fine. You're going to be okay. And there's all these alumni out there to support you. So great. Well, I'm going to keep it short and sweet if there's no other questions. I know, a lot of you have seen your names before on different events, so feel free to reach out to me. My email's here, and I'll go ahead and stop screen share and drop, I'll send Gary a link to this presentation in PDF so he can share it with you guys.
Adrian, before you go, as far as the Career Center, is it primarily designed for the students while they're on campus or for a while after campus? And if so, for how long after they're on campus?
Yeah, so career counseling is available up to 1 year post-graduation. And then the Career Center services, other services like access to Handshake, the job posting, and the recruitment platform is up to 5 years post-graduation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Adrian? This is
Yes.
Alveda.
Hi, Al.
I had the good fortune a few years back to be invited to and participate in a program at Memorial Stadium where the athletes met with former alumni who might or might not have been athletes, but most of us were. And we were asked to interact with the athletes, and they were to interact with us, and it was a fabulous experience. Each of the invitees, such as myself, were asked to speak about their own experiences and give an example of their progress through their career searches. And I thought it was fabulous.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know about that event, but it sounds similar to our career connections in sports industry, where we primarily market it to student athletes, and we work with the Cameron Center as our sponsor partner, our co-host for the event. And we've been really lucky. Their new hire, Benetti, has really helped us reach out to student athletes, and we always welcome alumni, especially if you've worked. You know, obviously we have the sports event, but it's by industry, so it's all different industries that we have. You know, unfortunately, we had to cancel healthcare recently, but we're going to try to get that going again in the spring. And I'll go ahead and share in the chat our sign up page so you guys can have a look. Any other questions?
I have a question, actually. The environment for career is a lot different than when I and a lot of us were kind of just starting out, where, you know, you went to work for a company and you stayed there for, you know, for years. And now the environment seems to be more of, you know, you go somewhere and you work there for a couple of years, 3 years maybe, and you move to another company. I mean, there's no real longevity usually with one firm. How does the career center, I'm not sure what my question really is, how does the career center help with that that constant amount of transition?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Gary. Thanks. I think the Career Center helps students build their personal brand, number one, and to define themselves aside from what company they work for. So if anyone here has done freelance, you know, you have to really sell your own skills and your own abilities. So our counseling team really helps the students understand, what are your strengths? What can you bring to the table? How can you promote yourself? Whether or not you're working for the same company and you're getting that growth, how can you, you know, level up, right? You know, everybody knows that if you want to get into like a management level role and you can't get in at your own company, you change jobs. But I think a lot of this is also peer-to-peer learning. So students talk to their older brothers and sisters, their cousins who have gone through it. And this has all changed like pretty slowly over time. I think COVID has caused probably the fastest change recently. But over time, this process of changing jobs in the Bay Area, it's 11 months is the average amount of time somebody stays in a new job, which is crazy to me because, again, like I'm kind of an elder millennial, so I'm sort of between the Gen Z that we have currently and the Gen Xers in terms of how long I would stay at a company. But for me, like it's 2 years minimum, up to 5, maybe 10. But for Gen Z, it's like a year is fine. And companies have really had to adjust to that as well. So that's a really good point. And I think students actually, you know, they're very aware that the world is changing and they need skills more than ever, right? Hard skills, technical skills, as well as communication skills and interpersonal skills. I have a question in the chat. Our students want to stay in California or prefer out of state? The vast majority prefer to stay in California, but those numbers are skewed because they include international students who are trying to work in California and stay domestically. The vast majority of international students really want to try to work in the US for a year or two of post-graduation. So that kind of skews our numbers, but still most students, LA or San Francisco is the location of choice.
Adrian, why is it that so many of the current students feel that they're only going to be there for a year and then move on? Is it they've been there for a year and they're promoted to CEO yet? Or is it Nancy dance and toe? Why is it such a dramatic change?
You know, I honestly am not sure exactly what it is. I think it's just cultural change and the nature of work. Gig work is more acceptable. There's a lot more people doing freelance, working for Uber, working for, you know, all these apps, doing different like short-term gig work. And it's also a function of a lot of companies saving money by offering gig positions rather than full-time salaried benefited roles. So full-time salary benefited roles, or dare I say, unionized positions are really kind of going out the window. So students are kind of learning, and I think a lot of the workforce is kind of learning, you have to create your own security because your company's not going to create that for you because they can easily outsource your role to someone overseas for way less money. And this is my personal opinion, not the Career Center's opinion, but me watching the statistics, reading the LinkedIn reports, the Wall Street Journal reports on recruiting and on business and the way hiring is headed, what I see is companies are trying to save money by hiring people on short-term basis. And a lot of students get used to that lifestyle and then they kind of like it because it's a new thing. Every couple of years, it's a new thing. And it is more insecure though, and long-term, it is going to make it harder for them financially in a lot of ways compared to their parents' generation or their grandparents' generation. So, but again, I'm not an economist, so that's my best answer.
Okay, do you feel that they're more entrepreneurial?
For sure, yeah. They are very aware of their personal brand and they're very active on social media and understand compared with 10, 15 years ago where they may post a drunk picture of themselves on a Saturday night, they understand that their image is important and they're very careful about what they say online and do online.
It's interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah, they throw me for a loop all the time. I'm surprised by them. I think I'm young and then I talk to them and I'm like, oh, wow, you guys are so different than me. So great. Well, it's lovely to see everyone's faces. If there's no other questions, you know, I don't want to keep your meeting. It was really fun listening to you. I also did my undergrad at in Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma. So I hate Texas as well. Fundamentally can't like Texas. So here's hoping that your season goes well as well.
All right. Adrian, thank you so much for being with us. And we appreciate the information. So you did put a few things in chat here. So there's a link with the slide deck. And I've grabbed that. And so if anybody would like that, you can, and you don't grab it right now, just let me know and I'll email that to you. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what the first thing that you put in there was. It looks like a Google Doc form.
Yeah, that's for our Career Connections series. Oh, sorry, you know what? That's from last year. I'll send a new one for this year.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. All right. So again, Adrian, thank you. Adam, thank you for being here. I'll be in touch with you in the next day or two. And we should have this meeting, the recording will be finishing up here shortly. And then Steve, I'll send it over to Steve, who will put it up onto our YouTube channel. I don't know, Steve, did you get last week's up yet?
Pardon the delay. It's been a little busy and a little bit rusty on, what button do I push again? So it will be coming as well as this evening.
Okay, great. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And with that, so and I'll send out a notice. So if you don't have the link, it'll be with the link for next week's meeting where we have athletic director Jim Knowlton will be with us, and that's always a fun one. And you want to be here for that one too, because Jim sometimes gives us some insider information, and because of that, we do not record that meeting. So if you want to hear what he has to say, you got to be here in person. So with that, I will go ahead and we'll close out for the evening. Thanks everyone for being here. For any of you that are traveling to TCU, have a safe trip, and we will see you next week for Jim Knowlton. So with that, let's all have a big Go Bears on 3. 1, 2, 3. Go
Go
Bears. All right. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks,
All right.
Gary.
Bye, Gare.
Bye-bye.